If you're inspo tanks and make no mistake, you've come to the right place. Just give to Neil the time to straight up blow your mind with a new show of Drawing a Blank.
Welcome back to Drawing a Blank. I hope you all have had a good week and are enjoying the change of seasons. This week's episode is going to be talking about the new Netflix original series, The Dragon Prince. So, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet, don't worry. I'm going to keep from talking about spoilers and mostly take time to talk about what I really love about this show and hopefully encourage some of you to check it out if you haven't. The first season is only 9 episodes long, so it won't take you long to catch up. And I'm very excited to see that a second season has already been greenlit, which is great, because honestly, the longer I think about this show, the more I love it, and I'm super excited to see what this team brings to the table in future seasons. The Dragon Prince is set in a fantastical world with magic, and as you can probably guess from the title, dragons, and follows the story of 2 princes of the human kingdom allying themselves with a Moonshadow elf, someone who is supposed to be their enemy in the war between the more magical races and the humans. They team up together to try and right the wrongs of the past and hopefully put an end to the war between their peoples. Like I said, I'm going to try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but there is a lot going on under the surface of this show and some fantastically written character introductions and arcs going on in just these 9 episodes. It's impressive how much world building and character dynamics this show executes flawlessly in this short of time. So much so that I think this is the tightest written opening to a long-form fantasy adventure show that I've seen in a long time, if not ever. The Dragon Prince came to Netflix to pitch to us, the audience, its ideas and characters, and personally, I'm hooked. I can't wait to see what more there is to find out about this world and these characters. And if you've already watched the show and are in the mood for a rewatch, I highly recommend going over to Twitch, where you can find a streamed commentary on the show with some of the creators. I watched that stream live and it was a blast. You'll be able to see me pop up in the chat from time to time. This team is really passionate about their project, and that passion rubbed off on me from watching them geek out about their own show. It was great. And I know I've mostly been gushing about the writing so far, but there's a lot more to love about this show than just the writing. The visual storytelling, art direction, and animation are all pretty fantastic as well. I absolutely love the character designs, and the 3D cel-shaded models in this show are gorgeous and beautifully detailed without being distracting. And while we're on the subject of art and animation, I do have something to say regarding the animation. Since that is one of the things that has been used as criticism of the show, I'm going to try my best to explain why I don't think it's very good criticism as briefly as I can. For those unaware, The Dragon Prince uses a lower frame rate than what you would typically expect from a show using 3D models. It is off-putting for the first few minutes, but you get used to it pretty quickly, and I can think of plenty of reasons why the animation team chose to animate the show this way, and I think it's overall a good choice. First things first, more frames does not equal better animation. And let me just say that again a little louder for those of you in the back. More frames does not equal better animation. It just doesn't. The thing that's jarring about the Dragon Prince's frame rate is the fact that we are so used to seeing 3D be smooth as butter. Even when the animation is bad, 3D animation is typically smooth. And we've been growing up in a culture that associates better frame rate with better quality, like, say, in video games, where a higher frame rate is necessary for player input. But that logic doesn't really translate to TV shows, and in fact, it can be a harmful mindset. This is getting into the nitty-gritty of animation, but essentially, having too many frames can leave your animation looking floaty, and the larger a frame rate you decide to work at, the more the animators are going to have to go back and polish each individual frame, especially since computers can be unpredictable and an animation that looks good in 12 FPS might look like a nightmare in 24. Cutting the frame rate means the animators have more control over the animation and can spend their time making the fewer frames they have to work with more polished. And it shows. There is some gorgeous frames in this show. Stylistically, the show probably chose this frame rate to make it look more like a traditionally drawn show, which I dig. The new Spider-Man movie coming out this December is doing something similar, and I'm so happy to see 3D animation finally break free on the chokehold of creativity that's been holding it back since its inception. And it'll happen with some people who don't know what they're talking about kicking and screaming, but the sooner that we realize 3D animation doesn't have to be smooth and doesn't have to look ultra realistic, the better. Now, all that being said, I don't think the animation looks perfect all the time. There are a couple of shots in the first few episodes in particular that have some wonky timing and spacing, so to an untrained eye, it looks like the frame rate is to blame. This is only a couple of shots though, and I think if this was a 2D show, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. If it's not obvious from the get-go, or you somehow haven't heard, one of the head writers from Avatar: The Last Airbender is directing and writing this show, Aaron Ahaz. Aaron wrote some of my absolute favorite episodes in Avatar, including The Storm and Crossroads of Destiny, and since the end of Avatar, I've been eagerly awaiting to see what he would work on next. While this show does have its similarities to Avatar, I really do think that Aaron and his team have the potential to create a show here just as good, if not better than Avatar. If you compare the first 9 episodes of Avatar and this first season of The Dragon Prince, you might see where I'm coming from and how this is all really exciting to me. Okay, so with that mini review out of the way, let's finally talk about the characters I'm drawing here though, right? The Dragon Prince has a very large and diverse cast of characters, so I wasn't sure who I wanted to draw at first. But after giving it a bit of thought, I knew I wanted to draw some of the show's leading ladies. These 3 are probably my favorite characters in the show so far, which is awesome, but also fills me with dread because none of these characters are on the same side, so I know they're going to fight each other and it's gonna hurt. Why? This is the part where I might talk a tiny bit more spoilers, just so I can explain why I love each of these characters. So either please go watch the show or jump to this timestamp. First up is Rayla, the moon shadow elf I mentioned earlier who teams up with the human princes, Callum and Ezran. These 3 still have a long way to go to becoming a real adopted family power group, but you can see that relationship slowly start to form, and Rayla's character growth and reveals were definitely the strongest to me. I love the tidbits we get about her before meeting up with the other leads, and the little bits we see about moon shadow culture. Rayla's insecurities and the way that she keeps things to herself makes her the most interesting when she finally starts opening up to the others. And I'm really excited to see where they take this character. Next is General Amaya. Oh man, do I love General Amaya. I mean, who doesn't? Her dry wit and no-nonsense attitude make for some of the best jokes in the show, but she also obviously is very battle-hardened and has already lost a lot because of the war. There's one scene in particular that left me speechless because it was handled so perfectly. She has a strong desire to do what she believes to be right for Callum and Ezran, and that conflict is probably going to be heartbreaking. And last, we got my girl Claudia. I love her so much. Her and her brother Soren probably have the arc I'm most curious to see play out in future seasons. I love her dynamic with her father and Soren. Soren and her are such adorable pseudo-antagonists. I just want them to be happy, but thanks to X, Y, and Z, I know that that's probably going to be a pretty rough journey for both of them. And to just talk about the art itself for a hot minute, I already mentioned how much I enjoyed these character designs, and they were a lot of fun to draw as well. Since I grew up drawing a lot of Avatar fan art back in the day, I felt right at home drawing this art style again. Of course, since the show is computer animated, they can get away with a lot more complicated designs that would be impossible to animate traditionally, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that drawing them traditionally didn't feel as strange as I was afraid it might be. And then when it came to the shading, I tried to add a little bit of symbolism with where I placed the lighting and how that affected each character. I had a lot of fun drawing this piece, and hopefully I'll get the chance to draw more Dragon Prince art in the near future. Let me know your thoughts on my art, the characters, and the show in general in the comments below. See you all next week, and please stay inspired.